What's going on, guys? J-Man back here again with another Walking Dead Season 7 review, Episode 9, Rock in the Road. So, as we left off from the mid-season finale, we got a glimmer of hope, what we will foresee in the future of the Walking Dead season. And it's basically, this episode, in essence, is sovereign delegation and really, we get to see diplomacy from both sides. Rick, Ezekiel, and Gregory failing his fruitless attempt at showing his diplomacy. um, but yeah, it's very interesting. So let's just jump into it. So at the beginning of this episode, we basically start off where we left off. Rick and Co. walking into Gregory's main his mansion and basically trying to orchestrate an attack and join an alliance to get rid of the threat of the saviors. They get rid of the oppression. So this doesn't end up turning out very well, and I kind of foresaw this to happen. I kind of believed that it would be a prospect where Gregory would just tell them, we can't do this, blah, 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 because we could get attacked, blah, 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 blah. Not realizing that if they combine their forces, they would be more than likely be able to have a fighting chance in terms of military dispositions and fighting. So after that, I thought Rick's solution was a viable one. Not to Gregory, though. So they leave and come to find out, mainly like everybody in the hilltop wants to fight the Saviors because they are oppressive force. They are. Negan doesn't even abide the golden rule, which treat others the way they would want to be treated, and there's no fair trade. It's it's a trade of inequity. So mainly everybody wants to fight except Gregory. So they have like I think it's like 30 to 40 of the population of the hilltop. So they have 30 to 40 people. I think what we're going to see a lot of in this latter part of the season is the will to fight, but it's going to make progress on weaponry, numbers, military dispositions, that I mentioned earlier. We display the will, but we need all these other facets in order to fight Negan. So I think we're going to see that build up and go into fruition up until the end of the season, until we see like an actual battle of some sorts. So after that, they obviously Jesus introduces them to the kingdom, and they go meet the they go meet King Ezekiel, and obviously it's an awkward confrontation at first because they're like, "Yeah, I forgot to tell you he has a tiger." Blah blah blah. Same stuff we've seen with Morgan and Carol. So after that, Rick displays his, I think, tenable and promising proposition of fighting the Saviors. And it's kind of the same reason why Richard wants to fight the Saviors. It's because they're an oppressive force. Having peace with the Saviors won't go on forever, and it might turn out to be a disastrous uh, solution just to stay at peace and not want to cause war. So that ends up happening, and everybody agrees that yes, we should fight. Richard joins in, but really Ezekiel, he finds Morgan's opinion to have the most merit from his viewpoint because he sees that he's been through a lot. He's got a um, a bastion of philosophy, philosophical bastion in his view is his viewpoint, and Morgan believes that fighting is not the best solution, and if we stay at peace, that would be more viable because no lives would be lost from the kingdom or any good people from Alexandria, etc., etc. So Ezekiel just basically says, I'll leave it to ponder in my mind and we'll see what happens. But he doesn't say yes immediately. And we get to a point in the episode where we get to see more of the flourishing aspects of the kingdom, and it's pretty interesting. You see military jogging, archery, and the archers have like lost limbs. And Ezekiel gives this sort of speech, this short little brief speech about how these people lost their limbs for this community, and this is what I have to build. There's costs and there's benefits. But ultimately, what Ezekiel is trying to say, in essence, is that the costs outweigh the benefits fighting this war. And he's just very doubtful and ambiguous about the outcome being more beneficial. So he ultimately says no. I also have to mention that Rick gives this really great speech, this great analogy he brings up when he's confronting Ezekiel, and he says, "My mother once told me about a story about a rock in the road and the way to a kingdom." And he talks about how the road becomes this obstruction for supplies, for sustenance, for any sort of raw materials, whatever, because it the horses would break their legs, and attempting to go over the giant rock in the road. But eventually, uh, one lady, one little girl, digs under the rock and she finds gold. And the reason why the rock was placed there is so it would be a test to see who would be tenacious and audacious enough to find the rewards of moving that rock out of place. So he's trying to use that as an analogy, the rock being Negan, and the people trying to get over it are the inhabitants are being oppressed. So rock being symbolic of the oppressors, Negan, you get it. It's the analogy, but it's a great analogy, and unfortunately, it does not sway Ezekiel. I thought that would put Ezekiel overboard for sure, and agreeing and concurring with Rick, but it doesn't. So, furthermore, throughout the episode, they leave. They actually end up um, allowing Daryl to stay to seek refuge, have an asylum there, because obviously you're going to have the Saviors and Negan's entourage, Simon, be looking for Daryl and attempt to kill him. So they leave that place, and on their way back to Alexandria, they run into this line of dynamite, and it seems to be a trap for walkers. And what they ended up doing is, since Rosita has some experience in the military, they end up defusing the bombs, and they take the bombs with them. And there's this huge horde of walkers coming near them, about like I would say like several hundred meters, and it start it starts intensifying a bit. The music starts to create this suspenseful mood. So they get in the car, and it's attached. It's like a steel wire attached to two cars. And Michonne and Rick, once they start dismantling the bombs, they get in the car and they drive through, and they just kind of like clothesline all the walkers with the steel wire, and it's an amazing shot. It's a great scene to see. Amazing. So after that, they leave, they go back to Alexandria, and of course, guess who comes on cue? Simon. Simon's there, obviously looking for Daryl, and they're there to kill him. Unfortunately, Simon can't find Daryl, so they end up leaving. Simon basically says, if he shows up, blah, 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 we're going to kill him, or we're going to have you kill him with the hatchet, so make sure you have that hatchet handy. So they leave, and we get to see these new ominous characters that were kind of explored in episode 8, showing the foot of, or the boot of the new characters. And we see that Rick comes across their group, and by the end of the episode, they're swarmed by dozens, I would say, maybe 50 of these new garbage patch kids, I'm going to call them. And we have this extreme close-up of just Rick smiling, like he's excited to see that these people could be prospective are soldiers for their rebellion against Negan. So that's how the episode ends. I'm sure they'll probably be allies. I mean, obviously they're not going to kill our main group because that would be the end of the show. But obviously, I think that Ezekiel would eventually be swayed later in the season, and obviously all of Gregory's inhabitants are most likely going to side with Rick, as you could see by this episode. So, enjoyed this mid-season premiere. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. And